Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make a fruit bread, and this is what it looks like. This is an enriched bread, which means it has a wonderfully buttery flavor and a soft and tender crumb, and it's full of dried fruit. I've added dark raisins, golden raisins, currants, and even some dried cranberries. So, to make our dough, if you have a stand mixer like I have here, you want to use your dough hook, or you can make it by hand, knead by hand. So the first thing we will need is 1 1/3 cups, which is 175 grams of unbleached all-purpose flour. Just put that right in there. Along with 1 cup, 130 grams of unbleached bread flour. Bread flour is going to give our bread a little bit of chew. And then you want to add 2 tablespoons, we need a little bit of sweetness, 2 tablespoons, 25 grams of granulated white sugar. And then 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of, I'm using a kosher salt. I'd like to add just a little, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. It kind of colors the bread, adds just a hint of cinnamon flavor. I mean, if you didn't want a cinnamon flavor, you could just leave it out, or if you wanted even more, you could maybe up that to like a 1/2 teaspoon. And then for our yeast, I'm adding 1 3/4 teaspoons, which is 5 grams. I'm using an SAF Gold instant yeast. Gold, you could use the red, but gold's good for enriched breads. And I like instant yeast because I don't need to proof it. I just add it right in with all the other dry ingredients, and it gives a really good rise. Now, could you use active dry yeast? Yes, you could. You want to use one of those 1/4 ounce packages of active dry yeast. Now, if you do that, you will have to activate your yeast in the milk. You want to heat your milk to lukewarm, add the yeast, kind of stir it. Let it sit 5-10 minutes or until it starts to get foamy, and then add it. So now, I got all my dry, I'm just gonna stir that. And then we're going to add our wet ingredients. 1 large egg, that's 50 grams. Have your egg at room temperature, just put that right in there. 4 tablespoons, 55 grams of butter. I'm using unsalted. Again, have your butter at room temperature. It's going to give us, you know, it's when you put an egg and butter, you call it an enriched bread, and it does make it enriched. Really nice flavor. And then for our milk, you want to add 2/3 cup minus 1 tablespoon, which is 150 milliliters, 150 grams of milk, and have your milk at room temperature. So let's get rid of it. Don't want to waste any of that butter. So now what we're going to do, we're going to knead the dough on first speed for 4 minutes. And that's going to mix everything together. Then we're going to increase our mixer speed to 2nd speed for somewhere between 4 and 6 minutes until we have a really nice smooth and elastic dough, and it will be a little sticky. So that's what I do have my timer to set. 4 minutes, first speed, and then 4 to 6 on second. Okay, we are done. So you can see, clean the bowl pretty good. Let's take it out here. It's a little sticky, but you can see, oh, it's wonderfully smooth. It's elastic. If I take a little, you can stretch it pretty good. If it really rips very easily, that's one sign that you have to knead the dough a little more. This is pretty good, as you can see. It doesn't rip right away. Actually, that's a good sign for any yeast dough. If you pull it gently and it rips, then you have to knead it a little more. So we are done with our dough. So now you need a bowl. You want to oil your bowl, even though that's, you know, there's butter in there. I like to just make sure that the dough doesn't stick to our bowl. So I put just a little flavorless oil, you know, corn, vegetable, canola, even a light olive oil. And then I'm just taking a paper towel and just, or you could brush it with a pastry brush. That, and then take your dough, put it in there. Make sure I got all of it. And then I just flip it over so that there's a light coating of oil so it doesn't dry out. And then I'm just gonna take my plastic wrap, put it over the top. Now, because it's an enriched dough, it takes a little longer to rise than, say, a regular yeast dough. I'm gonna say at room temperature, probably an hour and a half, could take even longer. Room temperature, 74 to 75 Fahrenheit, which is about, I'm gonna say 23, 24 C. So if your kitchen is colder than that, then it could take longer. So be patient. You want it almost doubled in size, not quite, but you want some rise. One place, if your kitchen is really cold, you could put it into your turned off oven. You could put your oven light on and then put your dough in there. Now, I don't leave the oven light on too long because then it can get really warm. So maybe 10, 15 minutes to warm it up and then turn off your oven light. So about an hour and a half and then we come back. We'll come back in a little bit because I want to talk about the dried fruit. So as our dough is rising, proofing, we want to soak our dried fruit. Now, you will need 1 cup, which is about 150 grams of dried fruit. Now, there's a big selection here that you could use. I'm using 4 different types. You don't have to use that many, but that's what I like. So I'm using I'm just using it. You don't have to actually measure like a quarter cup. I'm just kind of using some golden raisins, some dark raisins, some currants, and some dried cranberries. You could use dried cherries. Now, you could use just 1 or more different ones, but that's what kind of my selection. You want to, we're going to soak the dried fruit in some hot water. Do this for a couple reasons. One, if your fruit isn't really soft, sometimes it's not like, now my golden raisins are pretty soft, nice and fresh and plump, but my dark raisins are a little harder. So if we soak them in hot water, they'll absorb the liquid and become nice and soft and plump. The reason we do that is 1, to make it nice, the fruit nice, but 2, we want it nice and moist so it doesn't absorb the moisture out when we add it to our bread dough. We don't want it to absorb the moisture of our bread dough and make it kind of dry. So just put it in a bowl and just pour over enough hot water just to cover it, like so. And then I'm going to let this sit, depending on how dry your fruit is, 10 to 15 minutes, just like that. And then we'll be back. So I let my fruit sit about 10 minutes. It's nice and soft, as you can see here. So then, let's have a bowl with the strainer and just pour that right in there. Drain off the water. And then I'm just going to, you can just let it sit a bit, but I'll hurry it up here. Just press to get rid of any excess water there. And then I have a plate with some paper towel because we are going to pat the fruit dry to make sure we don't want it too wet. So let's put it right in there. And then I'm just going to pat that dry. And then I am going to add also, I like to add some candied, it's orange peel. You could use lemon, you could use a mixed peel. Now I know some people don't like candied peel, so you could just leave that out. So I'm just going to add that. And I'm just going to cover it like this and let it sit while our dough keeps rising. So our dough has proofed enough. Now I forgot to say, with either the orange candied peel or lemon, whichever one you want to use, you will need 2 tablespoons, 25 grams. So now what we're going to do is add our dried fruit into our proof dough. So what I like to do, take a large bowl. I mean, you could do it on the counter, but I don't know. I find doing it in a bowl is better. I'm going to put like maybe half of just kind of the fruit, and then take our dough. And I'm just going to put it right in there. Put that, and then I'm just going to dump the rest on top, and then we're going to knead it in gently. Till it's incorporated. While I'm doing this, you will need a loaf pan, and that is 8.5 by 4.5 by 3 inches, which is 21.5 by 11.5 by 10 centimeters. That looks good. I love this bread. You know, it's great for holidays, but really any time of the year. It's just so good. Makes great toast too. I mean, it's really good just with butter on it, but it's also great toast. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of flour on my surface. So, let's make sure that fruit is, don't worry if a few fall off. So now we're just going to pat it into a rectangle. And then I'm just going to take the short side, put it into the center, and then take the other one, put it over the top, kind of seal it. And then where the seam is, you can see, put that on the bottom. And then I'm just going to roll it. You might want to flour your hands just to seal that seam. And just going to roll it to it's about the length of my loaf pan. Tuck in edges. That looks pretty good. Put all that fruit that falls off. Now you can just lightly oil your pan, just again with the flavorless oil, or I'm going to make it easy here. Spray it with a non-stick spray, and then put that seam side down. Just kind of pat it in like so, and then take your plastic wrap. I'm just going to spray that or oil it and cover it. Now we're going to let it rise probably an hour, hour and a half, again, depending on how warm your kitchen is. It will rise not quite to the, if you're using this size, not quite to the rim of the pan. So that takes about an hour. So that's what I'm going to do. So now we are ready to bake our fruit bread, but first you need to preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 190 degrees Celsius. And then I like to brush the top of the bread with an egg wash. So in a small bowl, I have 1 large egg yolk, that's about 17 grams, and I'm going to add to that about 1/2 tablespoon of cream, or you could even use milk, and just whisk that together. The egg wash is going to turn our bread a beautiful golden brown color. So now I'm just going to take a pastry brush and brush the top. So now, everyone's oven is a little different. I'm going to say about 30 to 35 minutes. I do like to rotate my pan front to back about halfway through baking. That gives you an even bake. And what you're looking for, you will get what is called like an oven spring, which means the bread will rise once it hits the oven. And it's going to turn a beautiful golden brown. And when you tap it, it will sound hollow. So 30 to 35 minutes. So our fruit bread is done. Doesn't that look gorgeous? Beautiful golden brown. Tap it, sounds hollow. Now, if this is the first time you're making this bread, it is a good idea if you have a probe thermometer. Just stick it into the center of the bread. It should read about, around 195 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 91 degrees Celsius. That's a really good way to know that your yeast bread is fully baked. So now, normally I let it cool a few minutes, but be able to get this out. Just make sure it's not sticking. And then there we go. Oh, I just love the look of that. So now what we want to do is just put on a wire rack, and we want to let it cool down completely to room temperature. So, that could take an hour or two, depending. And then, so I'll do that. And then when we come back, we will cut a slice. So our bread has cooled down. So let's cut a slice. I like to use a serrated knife. Doesn't that look nice? Oh. Lots of dried fruit. It's nice and soft. Maybe I'll take a little of this. Really good flavor. Because it has butter and an egg and milk, it has a rich, nice buttery flavor to it. A lot of times I don't even butter this bread. I mean, it's really good buttered, and it's even good with the buttered and a slice of sharp cheddar, but it's good on its own. Now, you can store this probably 2-3 days. You could freeze it. It's really good toasted. It's just a wonderful bread. Good for the holiday season. Things with dried fruit are really popular at Christmas and even Easter, so a nice bread for that. But really, any time of the year, you'll love this bread. So you must try it. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.